The ship was called the Stalking Shadow, and it was an ugly, dangerous thing. It moved through the empty parts of space like a predator, looking for easy targets. Its metal sides were scarred and dirty, a patchwork of repairs and old damage. Inside, the air was thick and hard to breathe. It smelled of strange spices, of oily machinery, and of the musky scent of the crew themselves. The crew were the Xylosians. They were a race of hunters and raiders. They were taller and broader than humans, with thick, scaly skin of a dull greenish gray. Their eyes were large and black, like pools of oil, and they had sharp teeth for tearing meat. Their leader was a large Xylosian named Quan. He was standing in the ship's main control room, a wide, smug look on his face. On the floor at his feet was their prize. The prize was a human. His name was Jin. He was young, maybe in his late 20s. His clothes were simple, and now they were torn and dirty. He was curled up on the cold metal floor, shaking. He looked small and weak next to the hulking Xylosians. "Look at him," Quan said, his voice a low rumble. He kicked Jin lightly with his boot. Jin flinched and curled up tighter. A live one. A perfect specimen. Another Xylosian, an older female named Sue, watched from the side. Her face was more careful. She did not look as happy as Quan. "It was too easy, Quan," she said. The outpost was almost empty. "He was just—" There, Quan laughed, a harsh grating sound. "Easy? So you worry too much. The humans are spreading too fast. They have little stations everywhere. Some of them are bound to be weak." He pointed a thick, clawed finger at Jin. "This one is a technician, a fixer of machines. He was alone. We were lucky." "Lucky?" Sue stepped closer, her black eyes fixed on Jin. "Their security systems just failed. One moment they were active, the next, nothing. It let us walk right in. Their technology is weak." Quan boomed, turning to address the other crew members who were watching. "They rely on fancy computers that break. We are strong. We take what we want." The crew grunted and clicked their approval. They liked Quan's confidence. Quan bent down and grabbed Jin by the arm, hauling him to his feet. Jin stumbled, his legs seeming too weak to hold him. His eyes were wide with fear, darting around the room without really seeing anything. "See?" Quan said, shaking Jin like a doll. "No fight in him, pure fear. The collectors will pay a fortune for this. They want to study human biology, how they can live in so many different places, how they heal." He leaned close to Jin's face. "We will be rich because of you, little creature." He dragged Jin out of the control room and down a narrow, dimly lit hallway. The lights flickered, casting long, moving shadows. They stopped in front of a shimmering wall of blue energy. It was a containment field. With a push of a button on the wall, Quan deactivated it for a second and shoved Jin inside a small bare cell. The energy field snapped back into place with a low hum. Jin fell to the floor again, not making a sound. He just pulled his knees to his chest and hid his face. Quan looked down at him with satisfaction. "Rest well, prize. Your new life begins soon." Then he turned and walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing. Back in the control room, Sue was waiting for him. "Quan, listen to me. I reviewed the sensor logs from the raid. Why do you waste your time?" Quan sighed, annoyed. He sat in the large command chair. "The hunt is over. The prize is won." The sensor logs show a tiny energy spike from the human outpost just before their systems failed. Sue insisted. It was a very specific frequency. It wasn't a normal failure. It was a panic signal, Quan said, waving a hand. He was crying for help that never came. "It does not matter. We are already in the nebula. No one can track us here. This is our territory." Sue wanted to argue more, but she knew Quan would not listen. His pride was too big. He saw only the reward, not the risk. She decided to stay quiet for now, but she would keep watching. She had a bad feeling about all of this. Inside the cell, Jin was alone. The only sound was the constant low hum of the energy field and the deep vibrating rumble of the ship's engines. He stayed in his curled-up position for a long time, just shaking. After what felt like hours, the footsteps outside faded completely. The ship settled into the quiet routine of its journey. Slowly, very slowly, Jin's shaking stopped. He uncurled himself. He sat up, his back against the cold metal wall. The look of pure terror was gone from his face. It was replaced by a calm, empty expression. His eyes, which had been wide and frantic, were now sharp and focused. He looked around his cell, studying it. He noted the position of the energy field generator, the air vent in the ceiling, the small camera in the corner with a tiny red light. He was not a technician. He was not weak. He reached up and gently touched a spot behind his ear, right on the bone. It was a tiny, almost unnoticeable bump under his skin. He pressed it once, very lightly, a signal, a confirmation. Phase 1 was complete. He had let them find the outpost. He had made sure he was the only one there. He had created the perfect system failure. He had played the part of the scared, helpless human perfectly, and they had taken the bait. They had grabbed him and brought him onto their ship just as he knew they would. They were taking him right to the heart of their operation, to their main hidden base. They thought they were hunters bringing home a prize. They never imagined that the prize was the one who was really hunting them. Jin closed his eyes. He slowed his breathing. He needed to rest. The next part would require even more precision. He could feel the slight change in the ship's vibration. They were moving deeper into the nebula, into the secret pathways the Xylosians used to hide. He was a lure, and the trap was almost set. All he had to do now was wait for the right moment to spring it. The journey through the nebula was a long and quiet one. The stalking shadow moved through clouds of glowing dust and gas. Outside the windows, the universe was a swirl of purple and pink. There were no stars, only the strange, beautiful fog. Inside his cell, Jin was the perfect prisoner. He sat quietly in a corner. He ate the bland food paste the Xylosians gave him. He never spoke. He never looked anyone in the eye. To the guards who sometimes checked on him, he was just a broken thing. A piece of cargo that breathed. Quan was in a very good mood. He spent his time planning what he would do with the money from selling the human. He boasted to anyone who would listen. "The collectors will fight over him," he would say, his voice loud in the ship's corridors. "We will be famous." The crew that caught a live human without a single shot fired. Sue did not share his excitement. She could not forget the feeling that something was wrong. She went back to the ship's computer. She looked at the data from the raid again and again. She looked at the energy spike. It was so short, so clean. It did not look like a panic or a system crash. It looked like a signal. A single, sharp, deliberate signal. But Quan would not listen. "You are seeing problems that are not there, Sue," he told her, his patience wearing thin. "The prize is in the cage. The hunt is over. Be happy." Finally, a large, dark shape appeared in the view screen. It was not a planet. It was a massive asteroid, one of millions in this part of the nebula. But this one was different. As the ship flew closer, details became clear. The asteroid was covered in structures. There were metal towers and docking ports. Bright lights shone from holes in the rock. Ships of all shapes and sizes were flying in and out. This was the Xylosian Lair, their secret base, their home. The stalking shadow moved toward a large landing bay. It was a noisy, chaotic place. Xylosians were everywhere, moving cargo, repairing ships, shouting to each other. The air was filled with the smell of fuel and cooked meat. Quan stood tall, his chest puffed out. He went to Jin's cell. 2 other large Xylosians were with him. They deactivated the energy field. "Time to go, little human," Quan said. He grabbed Jin's arm tightly. Jin did not resist. He let himself be pulled to his feet. He kept his head down and his shoulders slumped. He walked where Quan pushed him. His eyes, however, were busy. He was not looking at the Xylosians. He was looking at the base itself. He noted the layout of the landing bay, the positions of the large doors, the types of ships present, the direction of the main corridors. Every detail was a piece of the map he was building in his mind. They walked through the busy base. Other Xylosians stopped to stare. They pointed at the human. They made clicking sounds of approval. Quan smiled, enjoying the attention. They entered a larger, cleaner part of the base. The walls were smoother here. The lights were brighter. They came to a set of big, heavy doors. 2 guards stood outside. They recognized Quan and opened the doors. Inside was a large room. It was a command center. Screens showed maps of the nebula and views from cameras around the asteroid. In the middle of the room sat the chieftain. The chieftain was older than Quan, with more scars and darker scales. He looked at Quan, then his black eyes fell on Jin. "Quan," the chieftain said, his voice deep and slow, "you have returned. And you have brought a guest." Quan pushed Jin forward. "A gift, chieftain. A live human. Taken from one of their outposts." The chieftain stood up and walked over. He circled Jin, looking him up and down. Jin trembled under his gaze. He made a small, frightened sound. "He is intact?" the chieftain asked. "Perfectly," Quan said proudly. "He is healthy. A little weak, but healthy. The collectors will offer us a mountain of credit for him." The chieftain reached out a clawed hand and lifted Jin's chin. Jin flinched and tried to pull away, but the chieftain held him firm. "Yes," the chieftain said. "They will. This is a good catch, Quan. Your status rises today. You and your crew will be rewarded." Quan bowed, his happiness obvious. Sue, who had followed them in, bowed too, but she said nothing. She was watching the chieftain's face. She saw his greed. She knew he would not listen to her worries either. "Take him to the secure holding cell in the med bay," the chieftain ordered. "I want our doctors to look at him. I want to know everything about how he works. Then we will contact the buyers." Quan and his guards led Jin out of the command center. They took him down another corridor to a more medical-looking area. The room was white and clean. There was a new cell here, this one with a clear front wall. It was stronger than the one on the ship. They put Jin inside. "Wait here," Quan said to Jin as if he had a choice. "The doctors will make sure you are a good product." Then he left, closing the heavy door behind him. Jin was alone again. He sat on the floor of the new cell. He could see a medical bed and some scanning equipment outside. He knew what was coming. They would scan him. They would look for weapons, for trackers. They would not find the obvious things because he had none. He waited. Soon, 2 Zelosians in white coats entered the room. They were the doctors. They did not speak to him. They began preparing their machines. One of them picked up a scanner. It was a device that could see inside a body. It could find bones and organs. It could find foreign objects. This was the moment, the dangerous moment. As the doctor approached the cell with the scanner, Jin began to shake. It started small, just a tremor in his hands. Then it grew. His whole body began to twitch and jerk. He fell onto his side on the floor. His arms and legs kicked out wildly. His back arched. His eyes rolled back into his head until only the whites were visible. A low, guttural sound came from his throat. It was a perfect performance of a violent, terrible seizure. The 2 doctors froze for a second, surprised. Then they rushed to the cell door. One of them hit a button, and the clear front wall slid open. "He is failing," one doctor shouted. "His biology is breaking down." They rushed in and knelt beside him. They tried to hold him still, but his convulsions were too strong. One doctor ran to get a sedative. The other put a medical scanner on Jin's forehead. The scanner showed wild, crazy lines. It looked like his brain was firing in all directions at once. It looked like a system crashing. A life ending. The doctor with the scanner shook his head. "The neural activity is catastrophic. We are losing him. The prize is dying." What the scanner showed was a lie. What the doctor saw was an illusion. Deep inside Jin's skull, right behind the ear, the tiny organic device embedded in his mastoid bone was active. It was not breaking. It was working perfectly. It was creating that chaotic brain pattern on purpose. It was hiding its own true signal inside the noise. While the doctor saw a medical disaster, the device was sending out a low, repeating pulse. A subspace signal. It was not loud. It was not a cry for help. It was a message. A single word repeated over and over. "Here." The signal moved through the rock of the asteroid. It moved through the metal of the station. It moved out into the nebula, invisible and silent to Xylosian ears. In the chaos, no one noticed Sue standing at the door. She had come to watch the examination. She saw the human on the floor twitching. She saw the doctors panicking. She saw the scanner readings on a screen nearby. The lines were jumping all over the place. But as she watched, her sharp eyes saw a pattern. The chaos was not random. The peaks and drops were too regular. They repeated in a sequence. It was hidden deep inside the mess, but it was there. It was not a malfunction, it was a broadcast. Her blood ran cold. Her worst fear was true. She turned and ran out of the medbay. She had to find Quan. She had to tell the chieftain. They had not caught a prize. They had brought a bomb into their home. And it had just gone off. Sue ran through the corridors of the asteroid base. Her heart was beating fast. The sounds of the base, which usually felt strong and busy, now felt thin and weak. She pushed past other Xylosians who stared at her. She did not care. She had to find Quan. She found him in the mess hall. He was standing with a group of his crew, laughing loudly. He was holding a cup of thick, dark liquid. He was celebrating. "Sue," he said when he saw her. "Come, have a drink." We are rich. Sue did not want a drink. She walked right up to him, her face serious. Quan, we have a problem. A big problem. Quan's smile faded. He was annoyed. What is it now? Are you still worried about the human? The human is not sick, Sue said, her voice low and urgent. His seizure was not real. Quan laughed, but it was a cold laugh. Not real? So I saw him. The doctors saw him. His body was shaking. His brain was on fire. How is that not real? It was a performance, Sue insisted. A very good one. But it was a signal. He sent out a message. Quan shook his head. He looked at the other crew members who were now listening. A message? How? We scanned him. He has no devices, no implants, nothing. He has something, Sue said. Something we cannot see. Something that looks like part of him. The brain activity was a pattern. It was a code. He told someone where we are. This made Quan angry. His pride was hurt. He had brought the human here. He had been praised by the chieftain. He did not want to hear that it was all a mistake. You are jealous, Quan said, his voice becoming a growl. You are jealous that I made this catch, that I will get the reward. You are trying to ruin this for me. Sue felt a flash of anger, but she pushed it down. This was more important than her feelings. This is not about you, Quan. This is about the safety of everyone here. The entire base is in danger. We need to tell the chieftain. We need to shut down the base's communications. We need to prepare for an attack. An attack? Quan shouted. He threw his cup on the floor. The liquid splashed everywhere. No one can find us here. The nebula hides us. The humans are not that smart. You give them too much credit. Just as he finished speaking, a low wailing sound began to echo through the base. It was the alarm. For a moment, everyone in the mess hall froze. The sound was so rare here in their hidden home. It was the sound of danger. Quan's angry face changed. It became confused. Then it became worried. A voice came over the base's speakers. It was the voice of the traffic controller from the command center. It sounded tense. Unidentified contacts. Multiple contacts emerging from the nebula. They are moving fast. Too fast! Quan and Sue looked at each other. Then they both ran. They ran to the command center. The chieftain was already there, standing in front of the main view screen. His face was a mask of stone. On the screen, they saw it. The swirling colors of the nebula. And in the middle of those colors were ships, 5 of them. They were not Xylosian ships. They were not like any ships they had seen before. They were long and sharp like black knives. They did not seem to push their way through space. They seemed to slide through it. They moved in perfect formation, without a single wasted movement. They were coming straight for the asteroid base. Where did they come from? The chieftain roared. How did they find us? Scan them. Quan shouted at the crew in the command center. A Xylosian at a console worked his controls. His hands were shaking. I cannot, Captain Quan. Their ships are not giving off normal energy readings. It is like they are not even there. But they are. Size? Weapons? The chieftain demanded. Smaller than our battleships, the operator said. But their speed is impossible. And I am reading very powerful energy weapons. They are powering up, sound the general alarm. The chieftain ordered. All pilots to their ships. All defense crews to their stations. Protect the base. The wailing alarm became louder. The sound of running feet and shouting voices filled the corridors outside. Quan turned to Sue. His eyes were wide with a new understanding. A terrible understanding. You were right, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Sue did not say, I told you so. There was no time for that. The human, she said. We need to get to the human. He is the key to this. But as she said it, the lights in the command center flickered. The main view screen went black for a second, then came back on. What was that? The chieftain asked. Another operator spoke up, his voice panicked. Chieftain, our communications are down. We cannot talk to our ships outside. We cannot talk to the defense towers. Internal communications are failing too. Another one yelled. Quan looked at a status screen. It showed a map of the base's systems. One by one, the lights on the map were turning from green to red. Communications. Offline. External sensors. Offline. Weapon systems. Offline. It was not an attack from the outside. Not yet, it was an attack from the inside. Someone was in their systems. Someone was turning off their defenses. In the med bay, Jin was no longer having a seizure. He was sitting up on the floor of his cell. The 2 doctors were gone. They had run to their defense stations when the alarm sounded. Jin was alone. The room was quiet except for the sound of the alarm. He could feel the subtle vibrations in the floor. He knew what they meant. The human ships had arrived. His team was here. He stood up. He walked to the clear front wall of his cell. He looked out at the empty med bay. He was not looking for a way out. He was waiting. A small panel on the wall next to his cell, which controlled the door, suddenly lit up. The lights on it changed from red to green. There was a soft click. The door to his cell slid open. Jin stepped out. He was free. He did not smile. He did not look surprised. It was all going according to the plan. He walked over to the medical computer. The doctors had left it on. The screen still showed the fake brain scan from his seizure. Jin's fingers flew across the screen. He was not a doctor, but he knew how to work this machine. He entered a series of commands. A small hidden program inside the base's computer system activated. It was a program his signal had helped to install. It began to open doors. It began to disable cameras. It began to create a clear path for him. He was not just a prisoner anymore. He was a soldier behind enemy lines, and his mission was almost complete. The base was in total chaos. The alarm was a constant screaming sound. Zalosians ran through the corridors, but they did not know where to run. Their leaders were shouting orders that no one could hear. The communication system was dead. Quan and Sue ran together toward the medbay. They had to get the human. He was their only hope to understand what was happening. Maybe they could use him as a hostage. Maybe they could force him to stop the attack. But when they arrived, the medbay was empty. The door to the cell was open. The human was gone. He escaped. Quan yelled, his voice full of fury and fear. Sue looked at the open cell door. She looked at the medical computer. The screen was dark. He did not escape, she said quietly. They let him out. Someone opened the door for him. Just then a new sound started. It was a different sound from the alarm. It was a series of loud, heavy bangs. They were coming from the far end of the base. From the main landing bay. They are breaching the hull. Sue said. They ran toward the sound. Other Zylosian warriors joined them, holding their energy rifles. They were big and strong and angry. They were ready to fight. They ran into the main corridor that led to the landing bay. The large doors at the end were sealed shut. But as they watched, the center of the doors began to glow with a bright hot light. The metal turned red, then white. Then without a sound, a perfect circle of the door simply vanished. It was not blown apart. It was disintegrated. Through the new hole, figures stepped into the corridor. They were not Zylosians. They were humans. But these humans were nothing like the scared, weak creature they had captured. These humans were tall and moved with a smooth, silent grace. They wore armor that was black and seemed to absorb the light. Their helmets covered their faces, showing only dark visors. They carried weapons that looked efficient and deadly. They did not run. They did not shout. They simply walked into the corridor, their boots making no sound on the metal floor. The Zylosian warriors roared and opened fire. Bright bolts of energy shot down the corridor. The black-armored humans did not dive for cover. They moved. One of them shifted to the side and the energy bolt missed him by inches. Another simply tilted his body and the shot passed over his shoulder. Their movements were small, precise, and effortless. It was as if they knew exactly where the shots were going to be. Then they returned fire. Their weapons did not make loud noises. They made soft hissing sounds. Small dark projectiles shot out. They were incredibly accurate. Each shot hit a Zylosian warrior in a part of their body not covered by armor, a shoulder, a leg, the side of the neck. The Zylosians cried out and fell to the ground. They were not killed. They were disabled. They could not move. They could not fight. Quan watched in horror. His brave warriors were being defeated without a real fight. It was like watching children try to fight adults and stop them, he screamed. He raised his own rifle and fired. One of the black-armored humans turned toward him. The human saw the shot coming. He did not try to avoid it. Instead, he moved forward into the shot. He spun around as he moved. The energy bolt grazed his armor, leaving a black mark but doing no real damage. In the same smooth motion, the human was now right in front of Quan. Quan was big, but the human was fast. Before Quan could fire again, the human struck. He hit Quan's wrist with the side of his hand. There was a sharp crack. Quan yelled in pain and dropped his rifle. The human then kicked Quan's legs out from under him. Quan fell heavily to the floor, clutching his broken wrist. The human stood over him. He did not point his weapon. He just looked down through his dark visor. Then he moved on, joining the others as they moved deeper into the base. Sue had not fired her weapon. She saw it was useless. She dropped her rifle and put her hands in the air. Another black-armored human walked up to her. He did not hurt her. He just took a small device and pressed it against her arm. There was a click, and a small light on the device turned green. Then the human moved past her, ignoring her completely. Sue looked at her arm. A small metal tag was now stuck to her scales. It was a tracker. She was marked. She was a prisoner. The humans moved through the base like water flowing through a stream. They met little resistance. Any Xylosians who fought were quickly and quietly disabled. Those who surrendered were tagged and left alone. Their target was clear. They were moving toward the command center. In a quiet side corridor, Jin walked. He was not wearing armor. He was still in his torn clothes. But he walked with purpose. He was not hiding. He was following the path his program had created for him. He turned a corner and came face to face with one of the black-armored soldiers. The soldier stopped and looked at him. The soldier did not point his weapon. He simply nodded. Jin nodded back. Another soldier, slightly taller than the others, walked up. This one took off her helmet. She had sharp, intelligent eyes and black hair tied back tightly. Her name was Hana. "Lieutenant," Hana said. Her voice was calm and professional. "Captain," Jin replied. "The nest is located," Hana said. "The target is secure. The chieftain is contained in the command center." "Good," Jin said. He looked down the corridor toward the sound of the fighting, which was already growing quieter. "Casualties?" "Minimal. As planned. Mostly their pride is wounded." Jin almost smiled, but he did not. "Let's go finish this." He walked with Hana toward the command center. The Xylosians they passed looked at him with confusion and then with dawning horror. They saw the weak prisoner they had captured. Now he was walking freely, talking calmly with the leader of the soldiers who had defeated them. They were finally beginning to understand. They had not caught a sheep. They had brought a wolf into their home, and the wolf had called his pack. The command center was silent. The alarms had been shut off. The only sounds were the low hum of computers and the quiet footsteps of the black-armored soldiers. They stood by the doors and the main consoles, their presence calm and absolute. The Xylosian chieftain sat in his command chair. He was not tied down, but he did not move. He knew it was useless. Two soldiers stood near him, their dark visors watching his every move. The members of his crew sat at their stations, their hands in the air, looking defeated and confused. The main doors slid open. Jin walked in, followed by Captain Hana. Jin had cleaned up. He was now wearing a simple black uniform like the soldiers. It had no badges or marks, but it was clean and fit him well. The look of fear was completely gone from his face. His posture was straight. His eyes were calm and focused. He was a different person from the trembling creature they had dragged into this room just hours before. He walked to the center of the room and stopped in front of the chieftain. Hana stood slightly behind him, her arms crossed. Quan and Sue were brought into the room by two soldiers. Quan was holding his broken wrist. His face was a mixture of pain and shame. Sue just looked tired. She had known this would happen. The chieftain looked up at Jin. His black eyes were full of anger, but also a kind of respect. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice rough. "My name is Jin," the man said. His voice was clear and steady. It carried through the quiet room. "I am a lieutenant in humanity's Deep Reconnaissance Service." "Deep Reconnaissance?" the chieftain said. "A spy. A scout," Jin corrected him. "Your people, the Xylosians, have been identified as a threat. You hunt other species. You take them from their homes. You sell them. This must stop." Quan could not stay silent. "You tricked us." He spat out, his body trembling with rage. "You pretended to be weak. You are a coward." Jin turned his head slowly to look at Quan. He did not look angry. He looked like a teacher about to explain a simple lesson. "You saw what you wanted to see," Jin said. "You saw a small, alone human. You thought that meant he was weak. That was your first mistake." He looked back at the chieftain. "Your second mistake was bringing me here, to your most hidden base, the one you thought no one could ever find. You gathered all your leaders here, your best hunters, your chieftain. You brought me right to the heart of your operation." Sue spoke softly from the side. "The seizure." It was a signal. "A beacon," Jin nodded at her. You are smarter than your captain. Yes, it was a beacon. It gave my team the exact location of this asteroid. It also uploaded a program into your computer systems. That program shut down your communications. It opened your doors. It turned off your weapons. You were blind and helpless before the first shot was ever fired. The truth settled over the room. The Xylotians understood now. They had been so proud of their hunt. They had been so sure of their power, but they had been playing a game they did not understand. You used yourself as bait, the chieftain said, finally understanding the depth of the plan. Yes, Jin said. It was the most efficient way. We knew you could not resist a lone human. Your greed and your pride made you predictable. He took a step closer to the chieftain. You thought you were the predators. You thought we were your prey. But you were wrong. Humanity's strength is not in our size or our sharp teeth. It is in our minds. It is in our patience. It is in our willingness to make a sacrifice to protect others. He gestured to the soldiers around the room. We did not come to destroy you. We came to stop you. Your raiding ends today. This base is now under our control. Your ships will be impounded. Your operations will be dismantled. The chieftain looked around at his captured crew, at the efficient human soldiers. He knew Jin was telling the truth. The fight was over. They had lost. Jin turned and began to walk toward the door with Hana. His job was done. Just before he left, he stopped and looked back at Quan and Sue one last time. You hauled me to your lair as a prize, he said. You never knew that you were the ones being hunted. You never knew that my seizure was a lure to draw you all together in one place, so we could end your threat forever. He turned and walked out of the command center. The doors closed behind him. In the room, the Xylotians were left in silence. The hum of the human ships outside was the only sound. It was a quiet, powerful sound. It was the sound of their old life ending. They had learned a hard lesson. In the vast darkness of space, the most dangerous thing you can catch is the thing that wanted to be caught.